girls we saw in danger of being disliked? Well, definitely with the first one. Michael R. Jackson's White Girl in Danger is one 3 hour long hot mess. Both watching and reading this is challenging, confusing, and gives me a headache to read and vertigo to watch. Using the soap opera trope and stock characters set in the town of all white with an all white cast, where the black actors are regulated to background only called blackground. There is a serial killer on the loose. Who will survive and who isn't? Certainly not the audience. Teacher wants to break out of the background and join the all whites, which he eventually does as the BFF to Megan, Megan, and Megan. Mom supports her but doesn't approve, and neither do the rest of the background who don't want to rock the boat. I can't even begin to tell you what the plot is. I mean, I tried, even with just the character analysis, I gave up. I'm sorry. This is unreviewable. I give up. I don't know what the hell was going on. There was so much flashing lights, so I couldn't watch it. It was hard to understand what they were saying because it was all gobbledygook, and they all had the same names and the same people, and it was just, I can't believe it's the same guy that got a Pulitzer Prize for A Strange Loop. Honest to Pete, I'm so disappointed. I actually called Ben in, who saw it on his own. I said, I can't do this on my own. What the hell did I try to see?
Yeah, so as Eva said, you have three protagonists, all with the same name: Megan, Megan, and Megan. A play on the basicness of white girls. But as Eva said, the sophomore attempt of Michael R. Jackson mounting a musical was just not it. Familiar faces from A Strange Loop included James Jackson Jr. and John Michael Reese, who followed Michael R. Jackson into this production. So it was, of course, nice to see familiar faces. Tara Connor-Jones portrays the mother in this show, and her performances were noteworthy. There were some incredible ballads that just didn't, for me, have any context, so I couldn't understand or associate what their relevance was, although they were really great performances that really, stood out as the 11 o'clock number. I appreciate what the show attempted to do in retaking the narrative, and having Black characters be placed at the front and center of a musical, as that unfortunately isn't the case most often. And I felt myself laughing out loud, maybe at one or two different moments throughout the show. There was one pivotal kind of scene, well, not scene, but storyline of characters in this high school playing at the Battle of the Bands. And I found that somewhat humorous because as they all begin to sing, their voices are muffled and distorted, and it was somewhat humorous. I feel like the show really just tried to do so much by throwing everything but the kitchen sink at you, and so it left me really just at a loss. And I feel like, at the core of it could have been maybe something more profound if it just stuck to what it was trying to do, of having these background characters just trying to break their way through at all costs to be seen and heard by an audience. But that really just got distorted by everything else that they were attempting to do in this show. So unfortunately, I have to give it a sad face.
But the thing is, this is about soap operas, and I watch soap operas. I watch General Hospital. It is my guilty pleasure. So I get soap operas, and we should say this takes place in a high school. These are high school kids, okay? So, but here's the thing. I understand what he was trying to say. That's why I was so disappointed in this, because quite frankly, there's a few Black people in soap operas, but I watch General Hospital, and it's in a hospital. Not a single Jewish doctor, not a single Jewish lawyer for all the court cases that go on in soap operas. I mean, we don't even get a cliche Jewish character. So I understand of not being represented in soap operas. I mean, it's like one of my biggest, where's the Jews in soap operas? So I get that frustration of where are the Black people in soap operas instead of some token person here and a token person there. And he had all these kind of funny, references to these things, but it didn't click and it didn't work, and it would have been so brilliant if it had. You would have had had me cheering this on like crazy. But instead, I actually had to get the most miserable face you could put on this camera.
So currently playing at the Belasco Theater is a play called Goodnight Oscar, written by Doug Wright and starring Sean Hayes as the character Oscar Levant, who was a primal wit in the 40s and 50s, but who is now sadly pretty much forgotten. He was a frequent guest on the Jack Parr Show.
Who was played by here Ben Rappaport.
And he was just one of these guys that had this incredible wit that somebody would say something to him and he would come back with a retort. He also had a lot of mental health struggles.
I think his wife, June Levant, played by Emily Burgle, finally had enough of him and had him committed. But Jack Parr this was his first time doing the show. Was it in New York?
Live in New York.
Live in New York. And he really needed Oscar Levant, who was also famous pianist. I mean, his rendition of Rhapsody in Blue by George Gershwin, and who he later became friends with, who he was extremely jealous of. And George Gershwin was here played by John Georgesky. And, they're interchanged. But he didn't want to play the piano. All he wanted was his pills. His pills were the only thing that was keeping him, as he thought, sane. And the doctor that came with him was like, no, you cannot have these pills. And there was a little intern there who just loved Oscar Levant and worshipped him and was easily malleable. So you had this sort of firestorm of potential disaster happening.
And you also have these interludes where George Gershwin himself would appear to Oscar Levant and they would have conversations, and Levant was apparently obsessed with Gershwin, thinking, Levant wanted to compose and perform his own music, but Gershwin just sort of kept chiding him and saying, well, all you're good for is Rhapsody in Blue, which drove him even crazier.
Yeah, and if after you see this, or even before you see this, you really should go and find his books, because they are hysterical. They are brilliant. He was a mean, nasty, sarcastic son of a bitch, and you just loved him.
Yes, and I mean, the thing is, you can also find some of his television appearances on YouTube, so you can watch them and you can actually see and hear him. And Sean Hayes did a really remarkable job in transforming himself into this stooped, shuffling, drug-addled,
mouth drooping,
desperately unhappy man who was still able to make people laugh.
And also at that point in time, you had to be careful what you said on television with politics, religion, and everything else. And, and Jack Parr, of course, loved poking a hornet's nest. So yes. You can imagine, But anyway, this is just an incredible play. Thank you, Doug Wright.
He's smart, he's snarky, he has the perfect sense of humor for today's modern sensibilities. And he was also prescient in that, he knew that politics was all a bunch of BS and politicians were all a bunch of BS, which we see every day in our own lives.
I'm giving this a major happy face.
Same here. Go see it. It's really worth it.
James I. James, Fat Ham, Pulitzer Prize winner, and transferred from the Public Theater, transforms the overdone Hamlet to a fresher and meatier plot. Tio and Juicy are getting the backyard all festive for a little party to celebrate Juicy's mom, Tedra, marrying his Pap's brother, Rev. And coming over are their friends, Rabby, and with her two kids, Opal and Larry. Juicy's dad, Pap, interrupts the decorating to get Juicy to avenge him. But why should Juicy? His dad was a mean SOB, as were all the generations in his family. He has inherited trauma. Besides, he hasn't a clue how to kill anyone. Opal, on the other hand, would have no trouble killing anyone. Characters are always being told how to be when they have other ideas how they would like to be or not to be, right? This was just the cleverest, funniest play that I have seen in a long time. The way Mr. I. James takes the premise of Hamlet and skewers it like the pig that Juicy's family slaughters and barbecues for a living is priceless. This is not your grandmama's Hamlet. These people have minds of their own with many hidden agendas and secret longings and surprising paths. Will love be requited? Will revenge be carried out? Will Tio become a porn star? Is Shakespeare turning in his grave? And will he come back to haunt us and take his revenge on us for enjoying this Pulitzer Prize winning play so much? Even reading the play again made me chortle with glee all over again. The cast is a summer's dream. No advice to the players needed here. I absolutely loved this so much. I thought it was just hysterical. And you know me, I don't like Shakespeare, but Fat Ham is one delectable show. Major happy face.
It's funny. I also don't like Shakespeare. That being said, I didn't even realize I was watching Shakespeare. That's how captivating and clever I found Fat Ham to be. This Black and queer retelling of Hamlet uses current language and topics in its retelling. The plot really feels entirely original, and the full thing is set in a family's backyard during a barbecue. The actors consistently are breaking the fourth wall. They're poking fun of the concepts of a monologue and tragic endings. Yeah, really, it's overall enjoyable and humorous. I didn't even realize that the Uncle Rev and the father Pop are both portrayed by the same actor, Billy Eugene Jones. It really just overall makes for a great and energetic performance. Chris Herbie Holland is a riot from the start. He portrays the cousin, Horatio, as we would know him in the story of Hamlet, as just an overall horny stoner. And just the overall enthusiasm and energy from the cast is palpable, and much of the cast is from its original run at the Public. This play, short one Radiohead number, making it a musical, did not drag or skip a beat. All of the tension and humor in the show culminates in the end in very clever and unexpected ways. And the spectacle continued with special effects sprinkled throughout the show. Without providing any spoilers, it was a big happy face minus for me.
Mark Savitt went to see Blessed Unrest, and this is his review. In Steve Wang's Misconceptions, Harriet is an artist who returns with her 5-year-old daughter, Alicia, to New York City from Iowa to present a conceptual performance art piece at MoMA about children in war-torn Syria and Ukraine. The piece usually requires her menstrual blood, but when she discovers that she is pregnant, her friend Darcel suggests that she use fresh chicken blood instead. The blood is supplied by a devout Muslim butcher who views each slaughtered animal as a sacrifice to Allah. Harriet is staying in her ex-husband Jorge's apartment. He would like to get back together with Harriet and help her raise the new child, as he is the father. Harriet is deeply conflicted, but leans towards getting an abortion so she could concentrate on her art. She starts working on a new piece concerned with pregnancy and abortion. She gathers interviews with women who have experience and opinion about abortion. She also interviews a male lawyer who has a surprisingly logical argument for not allowing abortions for women who have been raped. It was discomforting but illuminating to hear these right-to-life arguments. I won't change my mind about a woman's rights to have a safe legal abortion. Perhaps my views won't be so smugly maintained. Harriet works with many long rope-like elements which suggest to me umbilical cords. There are also wire hangers against the back wall reminding us about the dangers of the pre-Roe era, which are with us now again. Darcel, who is African American, informs Harriet of the very different experiences of Black women dealing with pregnancy and abortion. Picture frames are used to indicate the framing on video of the interviews, but also to indicate the idea of framing an argument. This was a well-done, interesting, and informative show about a crucial issue made even more pressing due to recent court rulings. I had trouble with the fantasy scene involving the lawyer questioning Harriet's fetus, but otherwise everything else worked well for me, and Mark gives us a happy face.
At La Mama, you could see The Beautiful Lady, music and lyrics by Elizabeth Swados, an original book by Elizabeth Swados and Paul Schmidt, directed by Anne Bogart. It's a musical about 20th century Russian poets, their reactions to the changing cultural and political times, and their fates starting in 1912 in the St. Petersburg cellar cafe, The Stray Dog. The European male proprietor, Boris Tronin, is brilliantly portrayed by the African-American actress Star Busby. She warns us against revolution, fearing the dangers of speech and probable negative consequences of a revolution. She also introduces us to many of the prominent poets who frequent the establishment. We meet Alexander Bloch, who wrote a large number of poems about a beautiful lady. She apparently is the sexy, vibrant, bon vivant, excellent poet Anna Akhmatova, who is determined to endure whatever the circumstances around her may provide. The most committed to Bolshevism and extreme change of the group is Vladimir Mayakovsky. Others listen to him with interest, but remain distanced from his conviction. Hoping to be saved by a rich Western woman is the decadent Sergei Yesenin, among whose numerous wives was Isadora Duncan. Also prominent was Osip Mandelstam, whose work, although condemned by political leaders, seemed more traditional to me than some of the others. This is to show that because there's so much interesting material in it, I think I would need to see 2 or 3 more times to really understand everything. But the songs were catchy and illuminating. The movements of the characters and the overall direction and stage pictures developed were always gripping and evocative. As the years progressed, most of the poets are killed by their own hands or the state. As the Soviet system becomes more entrenched, the costumes change from vibrant and original and individual to almost gray uniforms. So many interesting plays are written about Russian intellectuals. I think about Tom Sappert's The Coast of Utopia, and not exactly the same thing, but a musical from a great Russian novel, Natasha Pierre and the Great Comet of 1812. It seems like if there's something with this kind of material, it's always going to be good. And this one is especially good. I give it an absolute happy place.
Leopoldstadt by Tom Stoppard. I've heard he said this is his last play. This is one of his most personal play, which is about his own memory, which he had forgotten or never was informed. It's a prosperous family in the first act, which takes place in 1899, and they are celebrating Christmas,
Even though they're Jewish.
even if they are Jewish, and they're entertaining themselves with incredible high level of intellectual stuff and artistic stuff, like talk about Freud and Klimt and everybody else. The grandma, Amelia, Betsy Adam, the pillar of a huge family, and her son, Herman,
That we saw
who
with
are-
David Krumholtz.
who are completely assimilated with everything Viennese. Till later on, in 1938, loud enough echoes of anti-Semitism are clearly in the air and are just frightening, till a loud pounding on the door is the end of everything beautiful and the beginning of worst crime against Jewish humanity. There was not a soul in that theater when I attended who was not sobbing. It is the most tragic experience of my theater going life.
Yeah, so you can imagine how I felt, because the thing is, it's like you have this huge family. I mean, there's like 30 people in this family. It's hard to go into all the things. And one of them, he gets himself baptized. He joins this very exclusionary club. He's doing his best to kind of put away all of his Jewish roots behind him, but that doesn't help him escape the inevitable, because it doesn't matter how hard you try not to be Jewish, you still are Jewish, and you have to be exterminated according to Hitler. So it's just to see at the end, when you realize what's happened, it's just very visceral when you see exactly what happens to this large family and what's left of it. And you think about, I think about my own family. I mean, it's like I keep saying this, I'm first generation German. My parents escaped that nightmare I mean, luckily my mother and father had smart parents that saw the writing on the wall. A lot of Jews didn't. They couldn't believe anything like that could ever happen. And but you also have the wonderful soap opera of, you know, women, people cheating on their husbands, and some people trying to get married and wanting to be a concert pianist. And there's all this stuff going on. It's just an epic. I think it's Tom Stoppard's best play. I saw it when I was in London. That's the first thing I did when I was in London 2 years ago, was go see this play. And it's just incredible. I don't know who's in it now, but it doesn't matter. Whoever's in it, this is just a play for the ages, and everyone, like you said, should see it, and do bring not just a Kleenex or two, bring a whole box.
Yeah, I cannot even talk about this play. It's too much. And you know, the family was just so assimilated, you could never tell
Not
the
all
difference.
of them. Not all of them. That's just it. Some were still
Yeah,
very,
you know, the one of the wife, she went and slept with somebody, you know, like she had Catholic, she was Catholic and all that cheating going on and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But the main story and
Yeah.
his memory and his remembrance of the memory, when he was a child, he was there. Okay.
And Cat's Cradle and mathematics enters into
Yeah,
it.
exactly. And then he comes back in 1991 when he's a grown-up writer.
But we don't want to.
Yeah, I know. But I'm just like, this is like a play. I mean, I've seen so many plays in my life. This is a play. Everybody can call themselves a playwright. You know, it's a personal. I mean, intellect. He had written very many intellectual plays.
And you don't have to be Jewish to look at this. You know, so this is not a Jewish play. This is a play about.
It's about humanity, about and the Jewish people are the one who went through Holocaust. So it's a Jewish humanity. It's not about all humanity. It's a crime against a selected group of people, a large group of people, and that is where the horror comes.
Yeah,
you know. So
yeah, I mean, you know, we talk about generational trauma. The Jews wrote the book on that one.
Yeah,
sorry, but we did.
And you know, lots of other things are still happening in the world, but nothing like Holocaust. But things are very bad happening still, and they should be stopped. Also,
oh yeah, I mean, there's such a rise of anti-Semitism right now. It's horrifying. But at least, you know, at least people are reacting, and they're not encouraging it, which is nice for a change.
Yeah, and many countries, Muslim countries, are going through a lot of hell also, you know, because of the capitalistic societies just want to get oil or whatever. It's a long story short.
Anyway, I'm giving this a major, major happy face with lots of, you know, moving tears.
I mean, me too, a very, very happy face. But in the way I think about it, these plays are so sad and they're so real. And it's just about life and about death and about massacres. And we're giving happy face. It's ironic, but you know what I mean?
But you know what?
It's just the word happy.
In the end, it does have a happy ending, because you know what? I'm still here. Elfie's still here. Hopefully Elfie will have children and they'll still be here. You know, sorry, you didn't get rid of us. We're still here. So Hitler. So Bina and I saw the original cast, but I was lucky enough, thank goodness, to go back and see it again. This is my third time, once in West End and twice here. And the new cast is Joshua Malina, Brandon Aronowitz has a bigger part. He's taken over from David Krumholtz, as well as still having his own part. Sarah Kiloff, and we saw understudies. So Otto was played by Christopher James Stevens, and Hermione was played by Ali Rose Daxis. So it doesn't matter who you plug into this, who you see this with. The play is still the play, and it's still bloody brilliant. It is so. Every time I see it, and I could see this 20 times, because you get something different every time, and because you know what's coming with certain events, and then trying to concentrate, like remembering who that character is and what he grows up into, because we see them at 3 different stages. You see them as a little kid, middle-aged, and then their kids. So what happens to everyone at the generation, and what Hitler, how he decimated families, it's so visceral here that you're just like, oh my gosh. So now it's Lisa's turn, because she hasn't seen it yet.
Yeah, this was my first time, and I had really wanted to see it, and I was very thankful when I got to. And it really is a tour de force. The cast is huge. The sets are amazing. The costumes are amazing. The lighting is wonderful. I mean, you really get the sense that you have been transported to another century, and you're traveling up through time with this very extended family group. And I will say, initially, I found it a little hard to remember who was who, but then my brain sort of said, okay, this person is this person, that person is that person. And by the end, I was able to figure out who they were. The cast does a uniformly wonderful job. It is a harrowing tale. I'm a big fan of military history, and I'm half German, and I know what some of my relatives did during World War II, although none of them ever worked in concentration camps. But it was, even as a non-Jew, I found it very moving and very affecting, and I could hear a lot of people in the audience crying at the end, including you.
Oh, well, yeah.
Yes.
I will cry every time I see this.
Yes. It's really stellar. It is just, I know it's a tough subject matter, and it's based on Tom Stoppard's own family experiences. But if you have any kind of interest in history or this era, you should definitely go see it.
You should just go see it.
Go see it.
Yeah. So again, I'm giving it a major happy face.
Yes, and I too am giving it a major happy face, even though it's about this horrific. But you know, the ultimate message is family triumphs. Family might be smaller, family might be scattered, family triumphs. A good message to take away, especially on Mother's Day.
And that's why Bina the Muslim, Lisa the Catholic, and Eva the Jew all find this so bloody brilliant.
Good point.
So our next show is June 3rd, and these shows will have closed by the time we can talk about them on our next show. At 5090 East 59th Street, you've got closing May 21st, Cecil Beaton's Diary, and We Were Promised Honey, and the 28th, you've got Allan Bennett's The Habit of Art. J2 Spotlight's last show is Goodbye Girl with Santino Fontana and Sierra Boggess, closing May 21st. Urban Stage's 39th annual Benefit Stories and Songs with Karen Akers is at the Players Tuesday, May 23rd at 6:30. New George's The Cotillion, May 27th. Edgar Allan Poe Festival, May 27th. Shadowlands Public Theater will close May 28th, as well as Gallery Players in Brooklyn's doing Sondheim's Assassin and Fuente of Juna at Theater for New Audience. And June 3rd closing will be Natko's Romeo and Juliet by Hansel Jung, who just won a lot of awards for Wolf Play and Sorry for Your Loss at the Audible June 4th. So I'll see you June 3rd, and we'll talk about Broadway and Lucille Lortel interview at the red carpet, and have a great summer.